Welcome, Reanimated fans. This is H.A. Conrad coming to you from, I guess, the center of the pandemic in the U.S. And I'm here, as always, with my intrepid co-host on the left coast, Stuart Tiffin. Hello.
Yo. Yeah, by comparison, we do not have a problem somehow in California. As much of a problem.
Well, you're also totally locked down, although I think that's pretty much coming today for us. And in New York, we have about 10,000 cases as of today, which is almost half of what the U.S. cases are. So it's going to be very interesting. The hospitals here are already overwhelmed, and they are looking at several sites to have basically set up as emergency hospital type centers, one of which is the Javits Center, which I would imagine most people who listen to us know from New York Comic Con. So that is what's going on here. And I would say that my husband and I are definitely practicing social distancing, and we're staying in, and everybody really needs to do that based upon the stuff that's going on everywhere, and in Italy especially. But I am seeing most people adhere to that, but we are seeing a lot of examples, at least from our friends that have been going out and trying to stay social distant, that not everybody's feeling that way. The biggest example I can give of that is that all the parks in New York are packed.
Yep.
And it's not people, just going there for exercise, which I can totally see, but it's people having like picnics and stuff. So
to defend picnics, we had to get out of the house yesterday. Went out to a nearby wilderness recreation area. I've never seen that many people out there. And we did have a picnic. And then we also got a tick on my daughter's neck.
Ew.
So no more picnics there. We learned that lesson. But also another feature of this part of California is, they kept all the parks open to encourage people to like still be healthy and go outside, but maintain social distancing. But then when like half the population of the area goes to the beach,
correct,
it's kind of hard because you all end up sitting on the beach pretty close to one another, and there was a lot of complaining about that.
To be clear, I'm not talking about a family picnic like the one you are describing. I am talking about large group picnics in the park with like 20 or more people, and them all sitting there drinking and doing their thing.
Yeah, we also had in our neighborhood, the end of my street, a bunch of kids had a house party on Friday night or Thursday night, and you're just like, okay, you guys. We've all seen the video now from spring break of the kids, right, saying, "If I get it, I get it. I don't care. I wanted a party this week."
Yep, and now they're.
I think it's pretty prevalent. That's all.
It's prevalent, and especially I hate to pick on the millennials and younger, but that's kind of where it is. And
this isn't millennials. I think this is younger. Whatever the next thing is that's where the issue is, because the people who were born in 2000 and 1999 are not millennials, right?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So I think that it's them, and it's boomers. Of course, Gen X is fine. We're perfect.
Well,
Gen Xers, we like to sit at home and do nothing, right?
We are built for this. I was actually joking with my husband because he's still continues to have a very, very hard time with this. He's really struggling, being the extrovert that he is. And it's not that I don't need human interaction. I do. But I grew up in a very rural area, and I feel like I've been returned to my factory settings. And I am not having as much of an issue with this as he is, and as other people appear to be, because, when I was a kid, we didn't really have anybody else around to entertain us other than my siblings, and, often we would want to get away from each other, and so that's what we would do. So I feel like I have more coping skills for this than maybe some others do.
Are you managing to split your day into more things than just streaming? I mean, I know you're working too remotely, but
yeah, I mean, we're we're doing our daily cheese ball video, which I think you've seen a few of those installments.
I have. Is that something you're going to make public through this podcast?
Sure. People can look at it on Instagram. It's H.A. Conrad on there, and we have quite a few cheese balls left, so I assume they'll be going on for a bit. But ideas welcome. But I think some of the fun of it is the surprise.
Oh, definitely. Also, the arch looks that Bill gives the camera after he consumes the cheese ball, or it gets stolen from him.
That seems to be what a lot of people are enjoying. So we're doing stuff like that. He is a extraordinarily creative person, so he's coming up with different things. And I am too. But I also I can definitely lose myself in a book and that kind of thing. So we're definitely breaking up the day. We've become, since we're cooking everything at home, that takes up some time. And we're definitely setting aside time to talk to friends and over either Zoom or face like doing FaceTime and things like that, and that definitely helps a lot. So it's important to have a schedule. I've also been doing a lot of the Instagram live workouts that my trainer Beth Lewis Fit is doing, and that has helped keep me sane. And there's another one, Big Ross 91 is another person that does a lot of cool ones, and these are all like apartment friendly. One thing that I like that they've been doing is having very easy props to have at your house. Like yesterday Beth had have a big hardcover book and a couple of towels and that kind of thing.
Oh, that's nice.
So it's all like, you don't need to have weights and you don't need to have that stuff. And I do have weights, so it's not like I don't have that stuff. But she is definitely keeping it real. Plus the addition of her awesome Frenchies, like her two little French bulldogs, is kind of funny because they get mad if she's sort of like in their sunspots and stuff. So they kind of she's kind of like doing her thing and pushing them out of the way, which is it's kind of funny.
Yep, we all get to see a little bit of the the rougher side of people who are content creators during this occasionally. I don't know if you've seen my video of how I've been keeping my kids. Well,
yes.
Some of how I've been keeping my kids busy. A lot of it has to do with the schedule too.
Yep.
And we have like art time and school time and etc. And then there's also like yoga and exercise. And so some of the stuff I've been posting was we have to get them out of the house, go for walks, or run some suicides and do some curls of Tide jugs.
Yep.
And so that's been part of the way we're staying sane also.
Well, I will tell you, I broke down and I ordered a water rower for Bill.
Oh, no kidding!
I did.
Okay.
I don't know if it will get here. I'll keep you posted on that. But especially now that we're really not. We're really not going outside, and we have our roof, which we can sort of do little laps around the roof, but it's a very small space.
You growing anything up there?
No. Too many kids kind of have access up there, plus the pigeons, but it's a good space, and especially since we live in an open floor plan, Bill uses it to get away from me when he can. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. I did enjoy the Simon Pegg.
Oh yeah.
PSA. So I saw that yesterday and I laughed out loud and I was like, I know it's going to be up, and I was really happy to see that you put in the links.
Yeah, they revisit the plan element from Shaun of the Dead, with just a phone call between Nick Frost and Simon Pegg, and it just takes you right back, doesn't it? It's just nice. Yes. It's nice to be with those two guys in an apocalypse because you feel like you're in good hands.
Right. And not shockingly, zombie films and pandemic films have been watched excessively during this whole thing.
Have you noticed that Netflix now shows you the U.S. top 10? It's pretty cool. I mean, they've been doing it for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
But if you scroll down far enough, you'll see what the top 10 movies usually are in the U.S. And right now they include I guess it's the show Pandemic, their show, the one that was created to make money off of this pandemic, as some people allege.
Yep.
And Outbreak was on that list too, but I think it's been pushed off in favor of what was the other one? 2012 is on there right now.
Contagion was, I think, probably the scariest because it seems to have the most
But
parallels.
it's not on Netflix, but it is
Right.
still probably one of the top rentals on Amazon.
Did you also see that Train to Busan was way up there?
No.
Yeah.
On which list? On whose?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I think it was, but everybody's
Is
been
it just in the
apparently.
Salon article?
I think so, but I also saw it trending at least in Netflix. But I wonder if it's because obviously they know me as their audience. So
Yeah. So
um,
it's interesting in this Salon article that we'll link to in the show notes. The author suggests that the reason why people are watching Contagion and Outbreak right now, in part, is because those tell kind of an Aaron Sorkin style story of competence in government. That like the
yeah,
day is saved by selfless scientists and efficient bureaucrats, and like they save the day and everything goes back to normal, sort of. Not really in Contagion because I think a lot of people are dead at the end of
yeah,
that, but it's still the only reason why there are any people left in a way is because of the selfless acts of doctors and whatnot.
right.
And
And
so it's in kind of contrast to how there's a pretty widespread perception that that's not how it's going here. To the in spite of some of the best efforts of state level government
right.
officials.
Well, I will give a shout out to all of our frontline warriors, our doctors and nurses, and any of the healthcare providers that are there, because they are out there every day, and we're reading all the time that they don't have access to all the things that they need, like the N95 masks and the hospital gowns and things like that. I did see that GM and Tesla had, well, Tesla reluctantly, but apparently they are doing it, have offered to help produce N95 masks and ventilators, because we're running so short on those things. And we need all these people, and we're lost without them. So just want to say thank you on that count. And I think that thanks will just, that gratitude, just there are no words, and it's going to continue as this goes on.
The one other point from that Solana piece is that the reason why people are being drawn to zombie shows and films right now is because that's to remind us that it could always be worse.
Well,
you might be stuck in your apartment, but at least nobody's trying to eat you at the moment.
that is true. That is true. I think we should probably jump into our next.
Just before we do, I would like to quickly do a numbers recap because I find them useful when I listen to our podcast later on. It kind of gives me a litmus test of where we were a week ago. And so a week ago, there were 157,000 cases worldwide, and now there are more than 300,000. We doubled. It's just less than 320,000, so not 100%, not totally doubled, but we basically doubled the cases since last Sunday. In the U.S., when we reported through the Johns Hopkins website, we had 2,952 cases. We've actually gone up almost tenfold with almost tenfold with 26,747, and I do realize that this is just how many tests we had, more than how many active cases there were then, but this is the only measuring stick we have, so I'm gonna stick with it, as meaningless as those numbers might be.
I think we need to be clear. I think that those cases are there, and it's probably actually higher than that, so it's just that we don't have the tests to get there. And while they've increased...
And even if we do have the tests, a lot of people aren't getting tested, and that's a narrative that I keep hearing.
And, I think that I get that they're having to make hard decisions, because basically if you're asymptomatic, they're really not doing that yet. I am seeing
unless you're rich or a politician.
Yeah, apparently. And as I mentioned, as of today, New York is over 10,000 of those cases, so it's quite a few in New York. But onwards, and you're still working, because obviously you're part of government stuff, so.
Every day.
Yeah. So how's that working?
Trying to juggle 2 kids at home.
Yeah.
And work. Yeah. And my wife is also working because she's one of the skeleton remote staff for the business that she helps to manage. So, and she's transitioning out of that job right now too. So it's a fun time. Yeah.
Well, onwards, my friend, and in the meantime, we've got The Walking Dead season 10 to watch and distract us. Although I will say, these 2 episodes, I probably had a different, more, I don't know, different reaction to them than the first time I watched them, because of the stuff that's going on right now.
They're both pretty stressful episodes, to be fair.
Yeah. So we're talking about episodes 7 and 8 of season 10 of The Walking Dead, Open Your Eyes, which is directed by the wonderful Michael Kudlitz.
Cudlitz, so talented.
Cudlitz, so
the mustache, so talented.
Abraham. Written by Corey Reed, and then The World Before, directed by John Dahl, and written by Julia Brookman. So, are you ready to jump in?
Oh, let's do this.
All right.
The Open Your Eyes is a Sadiq episode. It's also maybe the last Sadiq episode, unless we have flashbacks. Because spoiler alert, Sadiq's dead, yo.
Yeah, this is his death episode.
All of these flashbacks and PTSD visions he's been having over the course of this season culminates here with way more of them. Like, they just decide to really lean into the flashbacks and the PTSD and the breathing in a build up to him having this face to face with his killer.
Yep.
So it's kind of a lot of build up in that respect, which I don't know. I don't have a lot of patience for those kinds of scenes. How do you react to those?
The build up, you mean, or
all the constant flashbacks and just watching him have a hard time with stuff, I guess.
I mean, I think that they've already established that enough. I think that this went a little bit over the top, and I think it was probably to give him his long goodbye, to make it a little bit more momentous. But I agree with you. I think they did a little overkill with that. We also have a lot of sort of, in terms of watching him go through this, you're not sure what you're seeing sometimes and whether it's true or not. And, I mean, they kind of set this up, the unreliable narrator, with him before and in previous episodes, but most recently because when he ended up on the windmill with his daughter in his arms and he didn't know how he got there. So I think
when he was sitting in a chair and a bunch of arms came out of it and started grabbing him.
Yeah, that too. So they're setting up that premise here to kind of make the audience question his sanity a little bit.
Kind of makes you wonder if somebody hasn't been slipping him a Mickey, right?
Well, yeah, it feels that way a little bit too, right?
Yeah.
And guess what? Dante has total access, so that wouldn't shock me.
So, yeah, I mean, that's never even talked about, but the fact that he's having hallucinations, that is a element of potential symptom of PTSD, is having really bad flashbacks. But I don't know about the hallucinations part, because that's some straight up Jacob's Ladder stuff. Yep,
definitely. That's the kind of stuff he's experiencing is just pretty traumatizing. So and they play that up a lot, but we start to see sort of, I mean, we see all of the things that he is doing to try to keep the community healthy, and he's failing. And I will tell you, it's really difficult to watch because I already knew what was going on during this watching. So watching him walk around and, spoiler alert, give everybody water.
Yeah, there's a lot of scenes
so hard. And then you see them, like, him giving it to people. And, what do you do when people are ill and have, like, dehydration? You give them more water. And it even,
the first time I watched this, I thought it was the water because of gamma poisoning the stream up river from
them. So I already had that in my head, but this was not. Then finding out what it actually was. But either way, you're watching this and like, oh God, you know more exactly what it is now. So you're like, oh God, and he's trying to do it, and everybody keeps getting sick, and it's just a really stressful thing to watch, especially right now because a lot, just seeing all these people sick and how it's spreading, currently it's a little bit stressful. At least it was for me.
Totally. You'd wonder if they wouldn't have a contagion. Well, since we're on the subject, they're having a contagion in their community. If they wouldn't start boiling their water before they give it to people, or I don't know. Maybe that's the next thing they'll do after this. But of course, now they have no more.
And they don't. But I mean, they don't know the source, so they don't know if it's food. They don't know if this is being passed to different people too. So they don't understand necessarily that it's the water.
He does eventually figure it out.
He does,
when he's staring at a bunch of water, you know how those epiphanies work. It's pretty funny.
He was very House MD.
What do you think of? There's a short scene that you might not even remember, HA, of we get to see how Daryl lives in his nice house.
Yes.
He basically lives in a converted garage,
Yep.
and he appears to live with no shirt on in his converted garage.
He never has a shirt on with his dog.
And they show us all his scars, and like his tool bench, which is just where he seems to make crossbow bolts. It's short. There's not a whole lot of storytelling there, but it is a little bit interesting. What do you think?
I liked it. I liked having a little glimpse into that, and it definitely gives you, the idea. We already knew this before, but Daryl's definitely still damaged, and part of how they show this particular scene is because he's coming from the jail where Carol has brought the Whisperer that she has caught for interrogation. And she even says to him, look, I know this might be hard on you because it's going to take a while to make him talk. And I mean, we can't forget, first of all, that Daryl was abused as a kid, but also that he was terribly tortured by Negan.
Yeah, there have been scenes of him taking off his shirt off or whatever. And when he was with Merle,
right.
When Merle was briefly a good guy, and Merle looks at his back as if he's never seen those scars before. And so I think we get to see some of that again, but also there's a whole lot of new scars there.
Yeah. So that, I think, shows you how sort of how protective of himself he is. And I think that this is a very interesting, I think it's deliberate to show this because the only person that he is really not protected around is Carol, who's also an abuse survivor. And it's interesting because she has taken an entirely different tack with this Whisperer. She has no problem with torture.
She does start with the bread and honey and jam route and stuff, which was that was a laugh out loud moment where she brings in the tray with the towel over it, and you're like, oh no, what horrible implements does she have? It's a bread knife and butter and jam and honey.
But she gets this idea from Lydia because
yes, right.
she basically talks to Lydia because Lydia knows this Whisperer and knows that he's one of the people that helps guard the horde rather, and asks Lydia what they should do, what should they know, and Lydia basically says, seeing all of this here, seeing a civilization, seeing how that this is possible is something that that her mother can't fight if it sort of turns into the rumor mill, and we know that this is true because we've seen it. Yep. We saw it happen. And so that's sort of why I think Carol decides to take this softer approach at first, but then it immediately turns really quickly.
Well, and Lydia did say that only the most loyal Whisperers are allowed to guard the horde, so right. She's starting at the hardest of the bunch, so that's going to be more difficult. One of the interesting things about going quickly back to the scars and the abused among Alexandria, and we don't know, maybe there are more people with those kinds of backgrounds, and flashing way forward. I don't know are you totally caught up?
No. I after these 2 episodes I am not. Then the next few, you had said before that I should maybe just watch some fresh, and this is as far as I had gotten these 2 episodes.
It will be interesting to get your fresh hot takes as we go forward. But there is a without being spoilery and saying who says it, somebody says later on in the season, pain made you. And I think that, like watching these scenes, having that quote in my head, and you saying, Carol's also, formerly abused, and it does kind of resonate, and it makes a lot of sense as we go forward in the end.
And then one of the interesting interactions between Carol and Lydia is how Lydia is describing her mother and how her mother has control of all the people and all the Whisperers, and basically what she's describing is an abusive situation. And an abuser, and how people feel helpless, and even if they're not helpless, they stay in those situations because they've been kind of broken down, and that sort of power and control that the abuser holds is just all encompassing. And Carol, indicates, to Lydia that she's also an abuse survivor, and so it's interesting because then it makes you think, well, who are all the Whisperers and why are they in this position? And it makes you just think about the backgrounds of a lot of these people.
This is the question that keeps coming up for me is, how do the Whisperers recruit? And this probably speaks more to the next episode where we see some of Dante's backstory. But how do they recruit? Because they seem to just want to murder everybody they meet.
Right.
And there is also a time when Alpha is talking to Gamma or Beta in this season, and she says, the smart ones will join us.
Yep.
Do you feel like that's believable?
In stressful situations and depending on people's backgrounds, that sometimes they want other people to, like, in this case, that's how people can be really easily manipulated, and people are scared they're more easily manipulated. We've seen that Alpha tends to rule with fear, and she definitely takes advantage of people's weaknesses. But the other thing that she offers to them, which is something that both we hear from this follower, the one that they've caught, as well as from Gamma, is that it's that Alpha offers them her love. And her love is hard, and she abuses them, but she offers them protection and strength in a time that is very uncertain. And the way, and to show that how dedicated she is to them, they have all said, oh, and she sacrificed her own daughter. And of course, that becomes the linchpin of this entire thing.
Yeah.
Because they are unaware that Lydia is not dead. I think, how this plays out with Lydia and Carol is a little weird, because I feel like if Carol had told her what had happened before and not shocked her with it, she would have probably gone along. But instead, Carol makes this a big surprise for everybody, and Lydia feels entirely betrayed. So, and manipulated in the way that I think her mom manipulated her.
I didn't really believe that was... I didn't think that was a believable response. She walks out of the woods, a Whisperer sees her and says no and runs away, and she's like, Carol, you did this. What?
Well, no, I mean, Carol says, your mother told everybody that you were dead.
Yeah.
And
but still, why would she be like, you used me? She's like, you said you needed my help. Yes. You used me. Well, that's what helping someone is. It's a nice form of use, I guess. But to me, it was just like, what? Okay, this seems a little bit like
it is
extreme
a little,
reaction.
But Lydia's also been abused, so any sort of hint of that same behavior from someone else, especially from somebody who's an abuse survivor, I think has to feel like a betrayal. Lydia took a really long time to trust people, so. And by the way, Daryl gets some of that. He says that Lydia's been through enough. He doesn't even want her in the same room as the Whisperer that they captured. And, I mean, Lydia's agreed to go down and help him, but it's not clear that she knows why, and clearly she doesn't because of what happens when she ultimately is revealed to Gamma.
And Carol doesn't... Yeah, she does ask Carol. She's like, we're not going hunting, are we? No. Yeah. And she doesn't really say what she's doing. So yeah, okay. Carol, if she had come clean and just said, I want to show you to a Whisperer and show them that you're alive, right, maybe she wouldn't have felt as badly used. Done in. But yeah, I don't know. It just felt like it was an odd jump to make in like a 20-second span. Yeah.
And then we've also got like all the stuff going on with Aaron and Gamma, and as we know from the last episode, Gamma is trying to get intel out of Aaron. He's fully aware of this and just basically is like, hey, can't we just talk like normal people? And there, Gamma's lying about her background, said she has no siblings, all that kind of thing. And has like a weird moment where, and we know that her nephew is still alive, and she does not ask Aaron directly about it, but when Aaron mentions that he has a daughter, she asks if there's other children. He says yes, so we know she's thinking about that, and she's having a moment of weakness, and then is girded by Alpha, who's basically like, you need to use him, and you're getting weak, and then she whips her, with a little switch, which is weird. But we see, I mean, I think they're trying to show the power dynamic there and how much power Alpha actually has over people. And this just builds up to obviously the big reveal with Lydia. And Gamma sacrificed everything. Part of why she sacrificed it i.e. her sister, to protect Alpha, was because she believed that Alpha had sacrificed everything for her. So the reveal of Lydia is just mind-blowing to her.
Yeah, breaks her head a little bit. Also,
Yep.
she has been getting bought in by Aaron's easy availability of fresh bread. I mean, I would be.
Yeah.
I'd give up the Whispers in a second if I could smell fresh baked ciabatta or whatever it is that Aaron's bringing out of his backpack
It does look pretty
every day.
good.
Also,
good.
Who's taking care of Gracie while he's out in the woods day and night? Like, he's literally there in the middle of the night, and then the next time it's like daytime and he's still there. He's just hanging out at that bridge all the time. It's crazy.
Yeah, he's kind of like a troll, just hanging out at the bridge, doing some rhymes, with his one metal arm. But yeah, I wondered this too, but there has to be some kind of communal childcare, which I feel like Jerry's wife is one of the people in charge of that, because we've seen sort of gaggles of children around, but they don't really explain
but she's
this.
at Hilltop. But yeah, I mean, it would make sense. And you know what Dante talks about? It's how it's a village right before he kills Sadiq. So
yeah. Hey.
It's a funny scene to watch the second time. When the first time I watched that scene, I did not feel... I mean, it wasn't like a huge surprise.
No,
but the scene just... It's like a very interesting dynamic between the two of them. Sadiq also in this episode finally says why he's so bothered by Dante, but I think he's 100% off base why he's actually so bothered by him.
He's subconsciously bothered by him on other levels. And look, even from, as we said, even from the minute that they revealed Dante as a character, he is freaking off. And I think your instincts would be to notice that. And I think Sadiq maybe subconsciously realized there was something off about him the whole time. But with the big reveal, there's like this moment when, like, I admit when this first happened, I was a little spoiled because I knew that the actor that plays Sadiq was looking to leave the show, but it was still a bummer. I was hoping that they wouldn't actually do this, but they did. And Dante even says, like, oh, I didn't want it to be this way. It's like, oh, I wanted to kill you in another weird way. Like, what are you talking about?
I do have questions about why Dante chose to make his move, because he instigates the killing. Sadiq is not onto him. Sadiq is onto the fact that somebody in the settlement has turned the water bad, but he doesn't know who. And it's Dante clicking his tongue and literally triggering Sadiq's memories that and I think he even says, "Open your eyes." He clicks his tongue, which is something that he was apparently doing when he was holding Sadiq down in the barn, right in his ear, like "Open your eyes," TikTok, whatever he does with his tongue, and then he and he says that to him, and which is like, oh wait, Sadiq is like, wait a sec, I know that sound. Oh, you're that man. You're the bad man, and then Dante still can kill him, even though he's given up his advantage. And then while he's killing him, he's like, I didn't want it to go this way. And I'm like, well, why did you just make this happen? And he says to Rosita, he's like, well, he figured out who I was. I'm like, no. No,
you told him you revealed who you were, basically. Yeah. And, I mean, the only thing I was thinking in that scene was, like, maybe Sadiq was imagining him doing that, but no, it was definitely Dante who instigated that whole particular interaction. And it's just really, you know, and I mean, look, Dante's been messing with his head throughout this entire episode. Dante poisoned the Whisperer because, you know, he didn't want him to reveal anything, and basically made Sadiq feel like he was responsible for it. Cause,
did you notice the look that they exchanged in the interrogation room, where Dante goes up to him to cut his bonds, and he goes, "Don't try anything," and they have like a one Mississippi stare into each other's eyes.
Yep. So there it is. And that's sort of the end of this scene with Dante strangling Sadiq. And again, it is mysterious, and that I found weird. Because they could have
really a strangle. It was more of like what I would consider, with my experience watching WWE, that was a sleeper hold.
It was.
And I'm like, why did Sadiq die from a sleeper hold? Aren't you just supposed to go, shh, go to sleep? Isn't that what you're supposed to say when you do that? But then he has his eyes open and he goes all limp, and you're just like, oh, wow, that sleeper hold was for realsies. That's okay. And yeah, he's dead.
Yep. And so it jumps into the next episode, which is The World Before. And Rosita, this is a pretty quick reveal, because Rosita basically thinks he's acting shady, and then he reveals his knife to her. And it's all kinds of weird because he's like, oh, put the baby down. And then it's like a super creepy scene because, of course, we see Walker Sadiq and Dante saying all sorts of crappy things like, oh, animals eat their young.
Like, yeah, messed up. But Rosita comes back from being sick to be a total badass and beats him down. But also in the first 2 minutes of this episode, we get to see the backstory, which is he has a meeting with Alpha, and she's like, even though you're new, I want you to go be my eyes and ears. And then it shows how he infiltrated a group of survivors. He must have just guessed that they were heading towards Alexandria, or maybe he led them there. Either way, they end up in Alexandria. And it's a pretty cool way to use that introductory time to fill in gaps that we need as the audience. We don't need it, but it's nice to have them, you know?
Right, because it shows a little montage of all the things he's been doing to basically infiltrate, but also cause, basically stir up all the weaknesses within the community and have them sort of pitting them against each other and stirring up distrust and all sorts of things. Shows him doing the graffiti, the whole Whisperer graffiti. It shows him sabotaging the water. And, you know, it's a good little montage to show this. But primarily Alpha chose him because Lydia did not know him. So that was part of why.
And she must have had a good feeling about him because, I don't know, mostly she just seems to murder her own people like she did 2 episodes ago. Again, when that guy... Did we talk about that even? When he's like, why are we killing them by death by 1,000 cuts? And then they literally cut him down.
All right, you're done.
Don't speak up. Just don't.
Right. And then there's a lot of hand-wringing, especially by Gabriel and others, about how they trusted Dante. We have Gabriel sort of doing... lots of flashbacks.
Watching the video. He's watching his interview video. Like, how could I have missed this? I'm like, you're just asking you don't have a lie detector set up with this thing. Like, how do you feel like you know, I don't know how I mean, granted, some of this is not rational. He's beating himself up, and he's looking for clues, but there aren't going to be any there. Right.
And then there's an interaction between Gabriel and Rosita, and she's basically saying Dante was right, that they're weak, and you know, Gabriel's clearly struggling with this too. Sadiq was one of his best friends. And they actually have a weird little modern day family unit. I mean, Sadiq's
they sure did have a strange situation.
Yeah. And basically Gabriel and Dante says something to Gabriel or to the group that they're not going to do anything to him. They're going to do things because they're right. And then Gabriel basically totally knocks that theory on its butt. And
by the end of this episode, sure it does.
And he kills Dante. And what did you think about that scene?
Unexpected for sure, but you know, as soon as he goes into this jail cell, you know, something ain't gonna go well, either for him or for Dante. But I'm kind of happy to see a badass Gabriel. I don't know, I guess I'd much rather he kind of toe the line of being occasionally too hardcore, a la Rick Grimes, than season 3 Gabriel, where he's standing on top of a rock, you know, scared of zombies.
Well, I think that's part of why they're just showing
it's his journey, man. It's his journey. It's also, and his new look with the one eye, you know, white eye and the hat is definitely a way more badass version of himself. We've also had a reunion between Gamma and Aaron, who's never left the bridge. His daughter is raising herself.
Yes, he's just staying by that bridge. She's there all day, all the time.
She comes back after having run out into the woods and cried all night. And she's like, hey, you know what? I'll trade you information for a chance to see Adam, my nephew. And he's like, no way in heck. But then she gives him the information, and he brings that back to the community. And he must roll in after being out at that bridge for the last several days.
I know.
And he's like, what has happened here? Yep. And joins in on some of that hand-wringing, except just with his flesh hand, not his metal hand.
Yep. And basically, he and all the others are like, how was he by us? And he treated Gracie and all this other stuff. God, and it's like, this guy was a good actor. That's how it happened.
Literally, in multiple ways. You know, he was pretty good. He did a good job on that role.
Yeah.
He also, Aaron says, I talked to him about training the militia, and so that doesn't bode well. This was, you know, our secret weapon for this group was their whole shields and spears thing that we haven't even gotten to see in action yet.
Nope. And we also have sort of the big reveal about Sadiq dying impacts other people too, because Michonne and her group have been going to Oceanside, and
I'd kind of completely forgotten this part of the 10A, because I was
so
like, oh, there they go, off into like, the third act of the season, forgetting that they had gotten this call at the library.
Yeah, and they have, and this obviously, plays into the rest, sort of the distrust of outsiders at this point, because one of the things Michonne's worried about is that maybe there's spies in every community, and that isn't a total impossibility, because it was so easy for Dante to blend in, and
so super bad timing for Virgil to show up.
Yeah, so Virgil shows up. He rescues oh gosh, what is his name? Luke from a weird situation in the library. Though I will say, come on, Luke. I don't buy that, but anyway.
Those zombies were super quiet.
Yeah, but still. Anyway, he saves Luke and then runs away, keeps running away, and then
when does any of these guys walk into a building without banging on the doorframe first at this point, right?
Right.
Like, I don't know, I felt like they were a little bit loosey-goosey with their approach, and then, Luke almost gets got. I feel like there should be a buddy system at the very least.
Right. So anyway, this is where we're introduced to Virgil. And we catch up with him in Oceanside, where he's trying to steal a boat, and Michonne is having the one-on-one with him, and basically they're trying to figure out who he is, and then all hell breaks loose.
Virgil is such a spaz. I kind of don't like him. In the library, yes, he saves Luke, but then he runs away without any of his stuff, which then he's like, I'm so attached to my stuff later on.
And I want my stuff.
And then when he shows up at Oceanside, he's like, no, and it's just like, dude, just settle down. I mean, you are a 7-year zombie apocalypse survivor.
Correct.
Please get your stuff together.
Stop being so spazzy, man. But ultimately, what it ends up in is the interactions between him and Judith and Michonne, and he doesn't want to reveal where his community is for obvious reasons, because he's trying to protect them. We know that he's got family wherever he's coming from, and ultimately he reveals that he's living on an island on a naval base, and they have weapons there, and that's what he's going to trade his passage there to for Michonne to get the weapons. And then Michonne has to talk to Judith about it, because she's worried about leaving her alone, and she's really torn about it. And Judith's like, no, man, you need to go get those badass weapons. Stop all this. What
do you think of Judith tripping him with her sword? In a way
I kind of like that. She just cut him a little bit.
It just cut him a little bit, but we don't see her interact with humans so much in her ninja skills. So, but she doesn't really hesitate. She's just like, stop. We also have a scene, an unfortunate sort of scene with Rosita realizing the importance of her mortality, maybe, where she's having trouble killing a zombie with a metal helmet that Eugene has to help her with. And then she's more hand-wringing, like, oh, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I need to live. And, you know what? Everybody would have had trouble. Most people would have had trouble with that zombie, especially when you go outside with only knuckle dusters.
Right.
And, although it's not really, it's got a spike on it or whatever. But she doesn't have the right tool.
Nope.
And you're going to need help with that one. I don't know. She's beating herself up over nothing. I don't want this to be like a Alicia, I can't hurt zombies anymore sort of
I know,
thing.
That's really what I was reminded of, and I was like, oh no, not again.
Yeah, we don't need to explore that. Hopefully it doesn't go for too long.
But it was good. We had a Eugene interaction there, and he helped save her, and that was like kind of a nice little reunion there.
There was a nice moment where he almost says, I was just on my way home. Mm-hmm. And she goes, oh, you almost said home. And he switches to domicile. I was like, no, I didn't. Like, the fact that he has to put effort into speaking like a weirdo.
Yep, it's funny. And to round out this episode, we've got, the whole sort of culmination of the intel from Gamma, and who's revealed that her actual name is Mary. And she basically has given Aaron the location of the Horde. They're not sure whether to trust her or not, but Aaron says, look, we have her kid, and she wants to see him, and I don't think she'd lie. And so we've got a group, I would call them a hunting party, basically, of Daryl, Carol, Aaron, Magna, Connie, and Kelly, and Jerry.
Jerry's there.
And they are basically going off to try to see if this is where the Horde is. And come up nothing. Zip zero. And then they kind of blame Aaron, and Aaron's like, no, I don't believe that this is... I think she gave us the information she had. They're kind of like wandering around. Carol's being like super weird. Carol owns up that she's been acting weird. And, so there's a moment between them about that. But
very interesting scene between these two. I've never seen Daryl be this, like, emotionally available, I feel like.
Yeah, there's also a moment where it almost feels like they're going to kiss, which I'm sure, like,
their relationship is a enigma.
Yep.
But yeah, where he's like, you tell that to me. You come to me, and you just have to try. And I feel like he's being maybe more Norman Reedus than Daryl. Maybe.
Yes,
I don't know.
totally.
I don't know Norman Reedus, but it doesn't feel very Daryl to me. Or if it is Daryl, this is a new Daryl we've never seen before.
Yeah. And she's just all over the place. Like, we've been seeing her struggles, and with Carol, she's always keeping secrets, and I think that's really he's part of why he's so upset about that, because he feels like she should trust him of all people.
She hasn't always kept secrets from her own people, has she? I mean,
I don't know.
Maybe she has.
She always seems to have something up her sleeve. But some trust issues there, right?
Yeah.
But in any case, this leads to her eventually spotting Alpha, apparently with her weird Alpha Spidey sense. She senses her across like a clearing, like
it's
a mile
a good
away.
Distance. No, it's not a mile, but it's far enough that she's not going to catch up to her anytime soon.
Right. And Alpha's doing her weird little bald-headed thing.
Little spider moves or like whatever
moves.
method acting she does where she pretends to be a praying mantis.
Yes.
And what I don't get here is Carol, sure, she's a fit lady. She can probably run a good fast mile. But Magna seems to be fitter, and she's running with an intensity like that is Tom Cruise-esque, and she is not able to catch up to Carol. Nobody can catch Carol.
But also, like, okay, you see her. Obviously, she's leading you into a trap. Let's just be honest here. Like, I don't think any of this group is that stupid.
Why aren't the rest of them all yelling trap?
Right, like it's a trap. This seems just beyond belief to me. I don't know how you felt watching it, but it didn't shock me at all.
Frustrating
It was frustrating.
AF.
Yeah. And of course they end up in a trap.
A trap. Daryl clearly knows that it's a trap by the way he stops right before he walks into the mine shaft and pulls out his knives and inches along, but even that wasn't enough to save him. Nope. It is curious that none of them have a light source, but maybe that's just where they're at technologically. They don't have flashlights anymore. Well,
yeah, and maybe they also maybe, but I don't know. It just, this whole thing was extraordinarily frustrating and ended in a frustrating way where they're surrounded by the Horde in a cave, because that's how this is going.
Yep, on a ledge, and luckily it doesn't look like any of them got too badly injured.
Yeah, at this point. Anyway.
At this point, as far as we know. But this is the mid-season finale, and what a place to leave the show. Basically, we're cursing Carol for being blinded by her own thirst for revenge, and everybody else for knowing that Carol was blinded by her own thirst for revenge and not, I don't know, tying her legs together or something.
Yeah, not like catching up with her even though you're like a foot taller than her or whatever. Like, just difficult.
So slightly frustrating, however. As a half season taken as a whole, it's extremely strong. The stuff that's going on here with Siddiq and Dante, the whole Dante element is like, we feel like something's off, but you don't necessarily know. This half season to me kept me guessing. I really have just enjoyed it.
And I mean, despite some of the overuse of those flashbacks with Siddiq, I still think it was a good. That was a great episode, and I enjoyed it a lot. Just didn't enjoy the end of it so much. I felt like it should have played out slightly differently, but yeah, other than the sort of the annoying, frustrating part of the ending, I liked these two episodes. I liked this half of the season. So I guess it's gonna all be a surprise for me for this point forward.
Hey. And because of, I think, the way we've timed this, we should be able to keep watching two at a time. and that should take us up to the end of the season.
Yep, I think we should be okay.
So we will continue to do that.
So until next time, tell us what you're thinking, how you're doing in this new world of ours of late. Tell us what you're thinking about these episodes, and you can do that by tweeting at us, reanimatedpcast, Gmailing us at reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com, or you can leave a note on our site, reanimatedpodcast.com.
That's true. And just remember, if you're feeling down, you could be stuck in a mine shaft surrounded by zombies because of Carol's ineptitude.
But social distancing, that might save you.
That too.
But on a serious note, everybody be well and stay safe. And until next time, ciao.
Thanks for listening, and bye.